Hi, folks. Coming back to you again from the Queen's Park Theatre and on CGG TV once again. And I would like to introduce now to you Kathy Counsellor. And Kathy is going to tell a bit of her story, but before she does, Kathy, tell us a bit about yourself.
Ooh, depends on what you want to know. No, what do you want to know?
Tell us a bit about your the Nuggetja people that you're part of.
I'm a Yamaji Nuggetja woman from this region, but I'm still trying to currently find my way with my people. Not what I mean in that way. I mean as in the history of my family. We were, me and my brother and sister were taken away from home, so unfortunately we didn't have the luck of growing up with family. I've managed to get quite a few family members in, but it's just that's this generation. But as in the old people are the ones that I'm still learning about, which is hard. Because I didn't know my grandfather was still alive until I happened to bump into him one day. But and from there, that's when I was determined I need to find my place in life with the Nuggetja people here in Geraldton.
And this year's theme for reconciliation is "In This Together." What does that mean to you, that theme?
It's a pretty powerful theme, considering in this day and age we have a lot of foreign people coming into our country and trying to teach them our ways, our culture, our history, to be a part of us, and showing them that we've been here for 60,000 years, and it's time for them to come and be a part of us as well.
And what about the younger generation? How do you feel? Where do they connect into that theme?
To be a part of us, is that what it is?
Yeah, in this together.
In this together. The younger generation is totally different now. It's there's a lot of work that needs to be done with today's generation. Somewhere it's gone off the rails there somewhere. Between when I was growing up until now, we can try our hardest to make them recognise and be a part of our history, what actually happened, and it's not all about racism. Because in today's generation, it's all it's because I'm black. I mean, there is in some cases there may be that, but the younger ones, we need to seriously work on our younger ones in this day and age and show them that there's more to life than the drugs and the alcohol and whatever's been handed out to them now. That's my intake of it, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about where you did your schooling, and you said you were taken away from your family when you were young. This would have been in the 1970s, I believe.
Yeah.
So this was still happening, folks, in the 1970s?
We were very young when we were taken away from our mum. The one thing we could never understand is why were we taken? We had a house, we had our car, our dad had a job. And I can still see to this day, I mean, I was very, very young, but I can still see my mum on the veranda crying because she knew she was never going to see her children again. We were gone for quite some time. And it wasn't until, and the sad thing about it is it ruined my parents' marriage. Mum and Dad both went their own ways, but Dad always stayed here in Geraldton because he knew one day that his kids were going to come home. And we were quite lucky that Dad managed to track us kids down and find us and bring us back. But in saying that, after coming out of the mission, I suppressed that so far back in the back of my mind that life didn't even exist to me anymore. It just wasn't even a part of my life. And to be honest with you, it wasn't until the 2008 when the Rudd government did the national apology I took my children to watch The Rabbit Proof Fence at the cinemas. And at the beginning of the movie, when the white man came in to take the children, that sort of, it hit me. And I thought, geez, this is so real, you know. And I started crying, and my daughter said, Mum, what are you crying for? But I didn't know what I was crying for. I honestly didn't. Anyway, so we went home, and I had to ring my mum, you know, and I said, Mum, you need to go and watch this Rabbit Fence movie because it's just so real. You know, I said, I don't know. I sat there and I just cried through this movie, and everything that was going on in it, it was real to me. And she said, Kathleen, you were a part of that. They took you from me. And that's when the floodgates started opening for me, and the reality set in. And I didn't expect my white friends to say sorry to me. You know, it wasn't their doing. My sister and I did go to welfare to ask, why did you do this? We couldn't get an answer from them. Whether they would or refused, I don't know, but they wouldn't give us an answer. And anyway, it wasn't until when the Rudd government did the apology, and the Mayor of Gilton at the time asked me to do a speech. And I mean, of course I had to cry. I mean, what Stolen Generation kid doesn't have a cry talking about them things?
Very emotional.
It's very, very emotional. And I was quite honoured to sit, like the Mayor was sitting in front of me when I was doing my speech, and to see the Mayor actually crying that this is a kid from the 70s that was taken, you know. And the 70s, when you look at it, is just there.
Not far back.
Yeah, it's like around the corner. And then I had some of the old aunties, the elders sitting up the back after I did my speech, and, you know, they called me over, and one of them, Nana Yvonne Radcliffe, said to me, you know what, we always wondered what happened to them 3 little councillor kids. We never ever knew. But she said, now we know the story. And I was 12 years old when welfare sent me to Perth to meet Mum for the first time after we'd been taken away. And unfortunately, my mum, I love my mum. I love her to death. That's my mum. But welfare, when we were taken, they broke that bond.
Yeah.
That bond was never, ever repairable. And I chose not to. I mean, I've got a daughter of my own, and I chose not to do that with her. And the funny thing is when I had my firstborn child, thinking back, I went bush with my husband. We went out to Wiluna. He was 8 weeks old. And people saying, why are you taking an 8-week-old baby bush, you know? But at the back of my mind, I was fearful that welfare was going to come and take my child.
Yes.
So if I was
coming
bush,
on back,
yeah,
all coming back to
yeah. And I mean, I've spoken to my children about it, you know, and my daughter still asks me a lot of questions. My sons, they know what happened to their mum, but in every family, when you have a son or a couple of sons, they treat their mother like a queen, and my sons have never ever pressed that with me, and I think maybe because they might hurt as much as I hurt.
Yes.
But I'm starting to tear up now when I talk about these things. But
It is a very emotional issue. It's a very emotional issue.
And the thing is this year I got in contact with some of my high school friends. We're having a high school reunion at the end of the year for those of us that are turning 50. And some of them asked me a lot of questions like, where were you? We knew you were at school, but you were never in any photos. There's probably... From year 8 to 12, I was in probably about 6 photos. Probably not even that, actually. And I had to explain to my friends what had happened. And a lot of them are living overseas. Some of them are actually multi-millionaires. And I actually broke my friends who are these hierarchy people in these high places. And explained to them that when we came out of the mission, that was a part of the process with the welfare back then. I don't know whether it was with every family, but it was with our family in particular, that we had to be excluded from photos. And after I had explained that to my friends and You know, a lot of them kept saying, you know, we're so sorry. And I'm like, I don't want you to apologise to me. I want you to be my friend, you know.
To learn from that
Yeah,
along with you.
And a couple of them are actually school teachers, and they asked if they could use my story, and I said, yeah, you're more than welcome to. And the funny thing is one of my friends, when she moved to Geraldton with her family, not long after her father was killed, they came down from Newman, and she said to me, well, she had no friends, but I befriended her. She became my best friend, and you're going back 32 years, and she's still my best friend to this day. After she read my story, she said to me, Kathy, I need to talk to you. She said about something that happened when I was going to school in Carnarvon, because that's where we were on the other side of, in the mission other side of Carnarvon, and we went to school in Carnarvon. And she said when she went to school in Carnarvon, she never had friends, but she became friends with a lot of the mission kids. And we used to play a lot together in that after school. And this one particular day, her mother, the mission bus had arrived to pick us up while she was playing with us, and they tried to get her on the mission bus. And she was kicking and screaming because she's a white girl, you know, and they tried to actually get her on the bus. And her mother happened to pull up and, you know, argue, this is my child, you know. And so, her, you know, her mum took a photo of her daughter with all us mission kids. And then when they came to Geraldton, that's when I became friends with her again, but I didn't know her. I knew her, but I didn't, you know, I didn't remember her. So anyway, I went around and I had a coffee with her and her mum, and we started talking about things. And her mum says, I have a photo that I need to show you. And she said, this one particular day, they tried to get my daughter on the bus with you mission children. She said, until I argued with them. And she said, and this is the photo I happen to take of my daughter with all the mission children. And who's sitting up in this photo? This little black girl. And I thought to myself, how ironic's that? You know, we were friends in Carnarvon.
Yeah.
This had happened to her, where they tried to take her, and then all these years later, we became best friends in high school here in Geraldton. It was
The other thing is that the mother of that child would know or have a bit of an understanding of what it's like to have your child taken from you.
Yeah. She's got a beautiful olive complexion, and if you didn't know her, you would honestly think she was part Aboriginal or something along them lines. But it was just something like that could even happen. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Hey.
So the stories that Kathy's talking about, that there's a lot of intergenerational trauma. Like Cassie said, her kids it still affects her kids, even though it wasn't the children that it happened to, it was their mum that it happened to. That's what Aboriginal people talk about when they talk about intergenerational trauma. It's passed down from one generation to the next. Folks, I'm fourth generation. I didn't go through that. My grandmother and my great-grandmother did, but I still feel it in my heart. I feel my nana's story. I feel my great-grandmother's story, because we can't reconnect to what is lost. All of the stories from my nana's side are lost. So this is why we are inviting you to come and learn about the Aboriginal culture. Learn from us, hear our stories, and like I said in previous videos, don't be afraid to go out to some of the Aboriginal organisations. Ask them, sit down with them and talk to them. Ask them to teach you about the Aboriginal culture. Kathy, thank you very much for coming and sharing your story with us today. I know it must have been very hard.
It gets easier. Not easy, but it does. And I feel a lot better now that I can freely talk about it. But and in saying all this before we go, I had a friend of mine ring me up. She's doing some course through TAFE, and plus she works. And she rang me up and she said, is there any chance that you can teach, well, if I do a video of you making a damper? And I said, you're Aboriginal yourself, why can't you make a damper? But it was for her boss and his wife. And I said, well, okay then, come around tomorrow morning and, 10 o'clock. But I had previously made a damper before she'd arrived. And while she's filming and that, and she rang her boss and said, I'm doing it now, rah, rah. But the thing that annoyed me the most is both her bosses were Indians. And I said to the boss while she had her on the phone, I said, why couldn't you just come to my house? Why couldn't you come to my house and I can teach you, but you're also making a new friend as well. And I said to the young girl when she left, I said, look, in future, make them be a part of it instead of them sending you out to do the programs or projects. And I haven't heard from her since, but yeah.
That's what we need to do. That inviting them into our space
Yes.
and teaching them about the Aboriginal
Yeah.
culture.
And the thing is, like, even with our NAIDOC, we get together every year, for 1 week every year. And what annoys me is, and it seriously does annoy me, is we as Aboriginal people, First Nation people of this country, we can get out there and we're playing our part by inviting everybody to come in and be a part of us. But then when they have like the multicultural days and that, when they have them events, we go to their events, come to our events.
Yes. It's the only way to learn.
Yeah, exactly.
Hands-on experience.
Yeah.
So there you have it, folks. Don't be afraid to come and learn from us. Thank you for listening to us, and thank you, Kathy,
You're
for
welcome.
coming to tell us your story.
Thank you.